Okay. Working. I appear to be in 2 places, which is going to be so much worse to keep up with. But, yeah, why not? How is my audio? And are you picking up on a bunch of fan noise in the background? Because it is 200,000 degrees in this closet. I mean office. Oh, okay. Alright, pretty good. All the pieces are coming together. This is not the right newsletter. Oh, yes it is. Alright, good. I like that when I change windows, 75 different things move around now across 3 screens. So that'll be conducive to focusing and writing. Alright, cool. So, title, TK, something, ES 2025. I started this one already because it sort of popped into my head. But, is this legible? This could probably be a little bigger, huh? Great. That seems okay. At some point, the first full 10 minutes of the stream will not be me trying to figure out how to stream. And when I start with something already written, it does kind of feel like I should do a dramatic reading. Should I do a dramatic reading? Now, what I learned from the last one is that these are auto-published as recordings by way of YouTube, which is not how Twitch do. Which means the last video was a lot of me just kind of muttering to myself about how I didn't need to do anything hosty because no one was here. Which does not make for great playback, as it turns out. So, why don't I begin with a dramatic reading? This isn't the right order. This is newsletter number 5. Oh, well. It was just the end of June, and an exciting new standards document has just been published by ECMA International. That's right, the 21st edition of ECMA 74, Measurement of Airborne Noise Emitted by Information Technology and Telecommunications Equipment, is here. And if you thought the 20th edition was a banger, man oh man, just wait until you get a load of this one. Let's see, what else is going on? What else? I don't know if this comes through as a bit that I keep doing on these, but I keep doing bits whether or not they come through. Oh, welcome back to the JavaScript for Everyone newsletter, by the way. I start it, I do like 3-4 sentences, and then I remember when I'm writing it. I don't know, man. You gotta make your own fun. Ah, no, come on. I didn't forget. I would never. Not at a time of year so special as this one. In fact, why look there, just outside, gleaming in the summer sun and adorned with a comically oversized bow. The brand new 2025 model JavaScript. Kind of. As happens every June. Every June? I think it's been, well, every June. Since the latest edition of the ECMAScript standard was formally published. It's been published. Finalized? Ratified? Not but a few days ago. If you're not familiar with the link between ECMAScript and JavaScript, God, I already have this in the course, and I hate doing this same old routine, but If you're not familiar with the link between ECMAScript and JavaScript, the short version is that ECMAScript is the open and standardized scripting language that informs the implementations of scripting languages like Adobe's defunct ActionScript. Nothing newer than this, huh? Yeah, JScript. And our very own JavaScript. No examples. Does this help me to write, saying it out loud? Let us consider this. Why? I'm breezing right over this. Well, the legal-eyed among you, that pun's not going to come across, might notice that ECMAScript is a name notably free of any licensing baggage. JavaScript, historically speaking, not so much. It's an ongoing thing. Link out to javascript.tm. There are a couple of exciting new additions in this one. New helper methods for working with iterators, sets. Say what? Iterators are? And promises, for example. But the addition I've been following most closely, I don't know that that's strictly true, is import attribute. Well, I guess it's the one I've encountered the most. I don't know who just joined, but I'm not allowed to comment on how many people are here. It's a whole thing. So my last time was recorded, and I didn't realize it was recorded and published afterwards. So it's basically 1 hour of me being like, 2 people, huh? 3 people, huh? You're in time for a dramatic reading. Indeterminate number of people. You might be familiar with the concept of using import to import non-JavaScript assets, CSS or JSON files, for example, especially if you've worked with a bundler like Webpack before. It's a common pattern. I mean, people used require. I used require. Should I mention require? Anyway, it's a common pattern. Well, as anybody that has downloaded a JPEG that was secretly a WebP can attest, media types, formerly MIME types, are a mutable thing. Now what's weird is, in everything I read about this import attributes specifically, everyone is still using MIME types. And I wonder if I need to look up whether there is something I don't know there, or whether people are just saying MIME types because it's been around since time immemorial and it makes more sense to me. Anyway, whatever they are is a mutable thing. Let's make a little note for me. Double brackets are notes for me, just so everyone's familiar with my scratch paper conventions, which is important. There's going to be a quiz. Whatever they are is a mutable thing, and file extensions don't necessarily speak to the contents of a file. Right. There's nothing stopping that newsletters.json file from being served up as JavaScript from a compromised server. Should probably re-mention the media types thing, or MIME types, depending on how we want to look at that. Leaving you importing executable code to unknowable effect. For all we know, newsletters.json could be served up with a content type. Well, okay, so I do explain. I wrote this yesterday, and I can't remember any of it. Served up with a content type text/JavaScript, HTTP header, and contain an executed script that flips the page upside down. Or indeed something even more nefarious. So to address this at the language level, ES 2025 introduces import attributes, almost like a form of type checking, a la TypeScript, which is a weird thing to invoke. And here we are. So, what I just noticed is that big blog post came out yesterday about all this. I wonder if I can switch this without it blowing up in my face. Let's make this a Chrome thing. Okay. Good. Stream didn't wholesale crash. That's what you like to see. Lost my cursor. Didn't need that anyway. Let's have a read. Oh, I'll throw it in the chat. Chat's bang. There we go. So do these pop up? No, just a quick little metagame thing. That double chat thing in the stream, not the best. But presumably I do want to be capturing these in the recording. Alright, well, you know, it's not a perfect system. There is that. I guess that doesn't look terrible. I've maybe over-indexed on the retro for the two chat things. Those aren't the most readable. Anyway, not doing this. I'm not doing another 1 hour video of me muttering at OBS. Yeah, so I haven't even read this. Boy, there's so much. Oh. Well, look at this. Huh. Well, that'll come up. So this is basically the newsletter I want to publish, but better. So that's cool. Oh, it has been yearly since 2016. How about that? As happens every June since 2016. I'm not gonna... Oh, nice. I mean, listen, I can't imagine the chat volume is gonna increase too much. This is some dork stuff. I mean, you never know. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is my retirement plan. Maybe I'm a professional read blog posts out loud streamer. A real job that can exist. Alright, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I don't talk about any of these if anyone's curious, but yeesh, stop me if you've heard this song before. We have been importing non-JS files for ages. Thanks to the powerful bundlers, importing a CSS, SVG file, or JSON data heap has become the norm. The new import type attribute informs the module system about the MIME type. See, this is brand new. It says MIME type again. Configures fetching behavior and orchestrates parsing and evaluation of the imported asset. That seems relevant to include, I think. That it's not just like, it rejects it if it's not JSON. We'll come back to that. This ensures that the correct validation rules are applied and prevents potential security risks. Covered. Implementing this feature was a basis for JSON modules, and as of now, this is the only non-JS format supported, but additional types will come in the following years. That's true. That is worth mentioning. Let's do a little break for me. This only applies to JSON files. The plan is to expand this. It's fine, these are just notes. So I think something I probably want to touch on, maybe earlier, is that this is a case of tooling and emergent convention. Is that anything? Informing the standardization process. Never been more self-conscious about typos than now. Informing the standardization process. Now I'm just reading a blog post with an audience, so enjoy. Anyway. See, this isn't as good for newsletter fodder, because it's, here's a list of cool new stuff we got, and the course is going to have lists of cool new stuff, but this is more of a, this feels more lecture-y, which is kind of what these are about. Is the connection dropping every so often? I keep getting a loading spinner. And I do not, for the life of me, understand how bit rates work. I put borders on things for a living. I don't know about this. Yeah, this checks out. This absolutely makes sense. You can at any given... There's two things you can say to me on the internet at any given time and be correct. One is, you spelled that wrong. And the other is, nice pocket egg, nerd. Because I do a lot of baking, and I need eggs at room temperature a lot, so to warm them up I will put them in my pocket out of the fridge. But also, I now have 4 chickens, which means at any given time I have forgotten an egg in my coat pocket during the cooler months. So, pocket egg. Excellent, good. Yeah, I don't know why it keeps, the Twitch one specifically keeps popping up unstable. That could just be 2025 though, you know? Who isn't? Alright, so what else am I doing with this post? Well, let's divide this out for a thing that I know I want to write in here. Huh. Yeah, I wonder. I'll figure that out at some point. I mean, it's a small victory that I managed to get it to stream to 2 things using some OBS plugin of indeterminate origin where all the instructions were in Japanese, which I can't read. So it does work for now. There was a bit I wanted to do in this newsletter. No. Shh. Calm your... This is not going to make it in, but this is how the process works. Is I just start writing whatever heck pops into my head. Probably this should be a work safe stream. And eventually I delete the first 600 or 700 words of it and turn it into the thing I wanted it to be. I can hear you now. The wailing, the gnashing of teeth. You cry out. Do you cry out? You don't cry out. The wailing, the gnashing of teeth. How you cry. Will this impact your course writing? Do not cry for me, fair reader. There could be more than one. How you... I've used cry twice here. This is the important work. This is what it's all about, folks. How you I used whale already, too. The bad noising. Yeah, it's the good stuff. That'll make it in. How, you whale, will this impact your course writing? Do not cry for me, fair readers, for I am... How will these sudden and extremely expected changes, italicized, to the very fibra, spelled dramatically, of JavaScript impact your course writing? You perhaps fall to your knees. Anguished beyond measure. This is how it works, folks. The whole course is like this. Welcome. Perhaps fall to your knees at this point. The imagined anguish. Simply too much to bear. What this... You have to go back and change a bunch of stuff. Do not cry for me, fair readers, for I am shielded by the decades old. This is the Clofus. I mean, not that you can see a whole hell of a lot of it, given my filtering and zoom level. But let's see if you can. That's one wall. That's the other wall. And here we are. And it's fine. It's just a tube. You know? Getting the robot will too. The important thing is that it has a nice floor with the primo underlayment. So it's like an anti-fatigue mat all day long. I would like to explore like a leaning chair in here. Those are a real thing that people do. So I can just kind of kick back against the wall once in a while. But sitting just mangles my spine. Like half an hour in a chair and I'm up hobbling around. Don't know what it is. What I need is a fainting couch for my delicate Victorian constitution to work on. I used to be pretty cool and tough. I am surrounded by luxuries, that's true. The 2 monitors is a... You know, I was very skeptical of everybody who was like, you should get an external monitor. And I was like, this is pretty big. But it has changed the game pretty significantly. For I am shielded by the decades old, but more recently named of one JavaScript. Now, I have written about one JavaScript already. Wonder if that pops up where you can see it on the stream. Let's give that a second for the time warp to catch up. See, there was that stutter again. Interesting. Twitch seems to be doing fine. Well, whatever. Let's steal this from the intro. Wait, no, this is from my last newsletter. I mentioned one JavaScript. So maybe I don't want to get into this, huh? Here it is in the last newsletter. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know when I say that JavaScript, in ways both large and small, only makes a kind of sense. It makes sense for something developed 30 years ago, over the course of a week and a half, by Hatsune Miku. It makes sense for something that can be infinitely expanded, but cannot, per a principle known as one JavaScript, be changed or fixed. For example, null is a value that represents the explicit absence of a value, and, per the spec, specifically represents the lack of an object value, making it a not a value value that is especially not a value if the value that it's not is an object, which is, of course, what null is, an object. Null is an object. Of course it is, because JavaScript is deeply weird. So I didn't really say, I kind of said the deal. Which we touched on briefly in the talking full panic attack for an IE pair. Do I have, what if I, yeah, okay. What if I put on spell check as a treat? Just this once. That's not a, I have been thinking about, all right, if I put a little preview monitor up there, I would actually be making eye contact with the camera instead of hunched like a goblin to the camera, which would probably be good for my burgeoning career as a streamer. Every 2 weeks for all of 1 hour, where I read something I wrote just now out loud. Touched on briefly in the last newsletter. So I guess I don't have to do it here, which is fine, because I'm aiming to keep these at like 800-900 words. I don't want to, it's just a newsletter, you know? Which means I can expand on the bit, which is fun for me. So let's go back to here. And there was another blog post on this, which I think is really good. So let's throw these in 1 or 2 chats. Gotta be a better way of doing that, huh? One thing at a time. Why we can't rely on file extensions alone, don't I know it? Feature creates a foundation for safely handling different module types in JavaScript. When it lands in 2025, here we are. We'll have a standard way to declare our expectations about modules across all JavaScript environments. Oh, I used mine, okay. Not for the data inside the modules, but for the modules themselves. Okay, I already linked to this. I think I linked to both of these. I'll tell you what I don't have, though. Is a good go-to link. Let's open the browser not everyone can see, because God only knows. I don't have a good go-to link for one JavaScript, which I should really have. Which originates from, I mean, this is the deep web standard stuff. This was way back in some mailing list. ExploringJS.com, which appears to be a book after a fashion. Ekman, okay. Let's see. It is called One JavaScript because it avoids versioning. Sure, yeah. Oh, this uses media type. I wonder where this is. When this is from, rather. Whatever. There we go. David Herman calls this approach to avoiding versioning one JavaScript, one JS, because it avoids splitting up JavaScript into different versions or modes. Yeah. What is our reference? esdiscuss.org. Wow, this is a classic. 13 years ago. The benefit is that we get just one JavaScript. Dramatic reading? Why not? I shouldn't make up character voices for real people. I was just giving it some thought, and there's no way that ends well. Happy New Year, everyone. I've got some good news. There's been grumbling lately about the ES6 version opt-in. The detractors are not right about everything, but it's true that both the MIME type opt-in and the Pragma opt-in are painful. Boy, the detractors are not right about everything is the Web Standards national anthem, in my experience. Can do better. We could do it with modules, module syntax in a backwards compatible way, and use the implicit opt-in for any new semantics. And the benefit is that we get just one JavaScript. So this is everyone makes it much more complicated because everything's always much more complicated. How do you spell JavaScript? Alright, I am willing at this point to call this, if not the origin of the phrase, then pretty close to it. Let's switch back to writing. I think it's possible you've all been looking at browser the entire time, including when I thought I was showing the writing process. So, you know. Alright. I did copy that, right? Yeah. Which we touched on briefly in the last newsletter. I want to make this stupider, which is really the dream for any quick writing thing, is to get the meat of it there so I can make the stupid parts worse on purpose. That's what they don't tell you in streaming writing about JavaScript school, but I'm here to tell you. Make the worst parts worse. So far, this only applies to JSON files. Say arguably. The most common use case, anything in web standards terms is arguable. Take it from me. As the dust has settled a little, will be expanded. How did other people phrase this? Not to copy paste, but creates a foundation for, which is way smarter than anything I say. Let's see what this does. The new import type attribute informs the module system about the MIME type, configures fetching behavior, and orchestrates parsing and evaluation of the imported asset, which is certainly true, but also more specific than I think I want to get in this. Hello, several indeterminate number of viewers. I'm not going to harp on it, because I embarrassed myself talking about how many people were watching too many times last time. That makes it twice on this stream. Alright, so, you know, there's no reason I can't. Like, this is a good blog post, and this, you know, this ain't precious. Can I block quote this? What is the title of the thing? what's new in ECMAScript 2025? Because it's a good ass blog post. I mean, a good heck blog post. It can't possibly be 2025, can it? Maybe I'll just do that. You know, credit where credit's due. It's a good blog post. It's very informative. I'll not point people there. I'm not trying to keep them on some... It's their inbox, you know? I'm trying to sell ad space here. Wow, I guess in a manner of speaking. Important to include. Stop saying mime type. This is it. This is as promised. When you tune in, you get to see me having a real-time breakdown, staring at a Markdown file, glassy-eyed. Once the dust has settled a little, you know what? Let's put it back in terms of us. Able to make use of this new pattern for all manner of files. CSS, SVG. Webpack does fonts too, right? I have no reason to believe we wouldn't be doing this. Be able to make use of this new pattern will potentially, the hell I know, all manner of files, CSS, SVG, fonts, real audio files from, already getting a little punchy. Sky's the limit. This won't make it in either. Now, I have to do a search through the whole course before I publish it for the word now followed by a comma at the start of a line, because, Lord. Now, some of you, I know, have been reading through this newsletter. I've been reading this newsletter with jaw set and eyes wide with panic. How you may be wailing at your inbox into the uncaring silence of your inbox. How you may be wailing into the uncaring silence of your inbox. How will these sudden and extremely expected changes to the very fiber of JavaScript impact your course writing? You perhaps fall to your knees at this point, the imagined anguish simply too much to bear. Won't you have to go back and change a bunch of stuff? Do not cry for me, fair readers, for I am shielded by the decades old, but, well, was it decades old? Also, did I lose the link to it? Well, a decade. I mean, I guess the principle of don't break anything with updates. I mean, they would have fixed math prior to 13 years ago, you know? Someone's got to fix math. Huh. Dear Lord, I think I just got my first like on YouTube. I think someone has liked and subscribed to me, and I don't know who I am anymore. You know, you don't wake up one day thinking you're going to be a streamer. Oh, thank God. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. Before you know it, people are going to be smashing that bell for updates. Try and imagine me doing a thumbnail with a big wide smile. Maybe I circle a semicolon behind me in red. Nightmare. Nightmare scenario. Alright. For I am shielded by the decades old, much more recently, I don't know, made concrete? By the decades old, but more recently ratified? I don't really know what ratified is, and I'm not going to open a browser tab to look up words with an audience, which we touched on briefly in the last newsletter. Will all these, well, all's doing some work there that I don't necessarily want it to. Will these 2025 editions be in the course? Non-specifically? You bet. Some will. Do I have to comb through the latest version of the specification? See if they fixed, I don't know, math? No, for they never will. JavaScript, oh, okay. This is pretty good timing for me to have an idea for the punchy last sentence, given that I'm closing up shop in a couple minutes. No, for they never will fix math. JavaScript will grow more powerful, more featured. JavaScript will only continue to grow more powerful, more featured over time. This is a construction that really only works out loud. Unless I start using more semicolons. More powerful and more featured over time. JavaScript will continue to grow. This is what the people tune in for, I think. JavaScript will continue to grow more powerful and more featured over time. New additions to the language will change, will come with improved ergonomics. But what's done is done. Ergonomics in a vacuum doesn't make a ton of sense. What? But what's done will never be undone. Make it ominous. JavaScript is fundamentally kind of ominous. can't get away with saying real audio files from 1998. Santa got my letter. Okay. Yeah, that makes it stupid enough that I think it could fly. So some of you I know. All right, we're down to the last 5 minutes, which means I'm going to read this start to finish, because that is how I do stuff. Now that it's recording. That's good. We start with where it's at, and we end with where it is at. It was just the end of June, and an exciting new standards document has just been published by ECMA International. That's right, the 21st edition of ECMA 74, Measurement of Airborne Noise Emitted by Information Technology and Telecommunications Equipment, is here. And if you thought the 20th edition was a banger, man oh man, just wait until you get a load of this one. Let's see. What else is going on? What else? Oh. Welcome back to the JavaScript for Everyone newsletter, by the way. No, come on. I didn't forget. I would never. Not at a time of year so special as this one. In fact, why, look there, just outside. Gleaming in the summer sun and adorned with a comically oversized bow. You did not discuss this giant purchase with your spouse prior to making it in the lore of these commercials. You just bought a car. The new brand? The brand new? See, this is why we do this. Brand new 2025 model JavaScript. Kind of. As happens every June since 2016, the latest edition of the ECMAScript standard was formally published not but a few days ago. It's been published. What is the exact term they use for this at ECMA? If you're not familiar with the link between ECMAScript and JavaScript, the short version is that ECMAScript is the open and standardized scripting language that informs the implementations of scripting languages like Adobe's defunct ActionScript. I'm not going to say JScript. I don't know, Visual Basic, I think that was that ECMAScript informed? And our very own JavaScript. Why? Well, the legal-eyed among you may notice that ECMAScript is a name notably free from any licensing baggage. JavaScript, historically speaking, not so much. It's an ongoing thing. Get this link front and center. Everybody go sign up. javascript.tm. There are a couple of exciting new additions in this one. New helper methods for working with iterators, sets, and promises, for example. But the addition I've been following the most closely is import attributes. I am not going to explain the difference between iterables and iterators in this newsletter about something else. All I do is write about JavaScript, you know? You might be familiar with the concept of using import to import non-JavaScript assets, CSS or JSON files, for example, especially if you've worked with a bundler like Webpack or Ancient Ass Require. It's a common pattern. I could do with some gussying up, but whatever. Then that code. Well, as anybody that has downloaded a JPEG that was secretly a WebP can attest, media type, as an aside, I have a whole collection of non-developer, non-designer folks, like non-tech people, complaining about WebP, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's all very like, I can't stand this thing where I download a picture and it's whatever a WebP is and it doesn't work. I don't know why I'm collecting it, and I don't know what to do with it all. But definitely more dramatic, you're right. Oh, well, we're getting to the dramatic part, so that's good. This is absolutely going to change how I write these, too, if I start doing big readings of it. File extensions don't necessarily speak to the contents of a file. There's nothing stopping that newsletters.json file from being served up as JavaScript from a compromised server. Do I even need? No. Served up as JavaScript. Server side. Good. Leaving you importing executable code to unknowable effect. For all we know, newsletters.json could be served up with a content type, etc., etc. HTTP header and contain, LOL, your page is upside down. So to address this at the language level, ES 2025 introduces import attributes, almost like a form of type checking a la TypeScript. Am I doing this too soon? It's a question for later. Quoting that blog post, the new import type attribute informs the module system about the MIME type, please stop saying MIME type, configures fetching behavior, and orchestrates parsing and evaluation of the imported asset. So far, this only applies to JSON files, arguably the most common use case. Once the dust has settled a little, we'll potentially be able to make use of this new pattern for all manner of files. CSS, SVG, fonts, real audio files from 1998 if Santa got my letter. Was that the right year for real audio? I think it might have been later. I feel like I had Outcast in real audio format. I'm getting very old. The sky's the limit. Now, some of you, I know, have been reading this newsletter with jaws set and eyes wide with panic. How? You may be wailing into the uncaring silence of your inbox. How will these sudden and extremely expected changes to the very fiber of JavaScript impact your course writing? You perhaps fall to your knees at this point, the imagined anguish simply too much to bear. Won't you have to go back and change a bunch of stuff? Oh, maybe that's worth a mention, yeah. Let's make a quick note. Let's... Thank you, Chris. Do not cry for me, fair readers. There may be two of you, for I am shielded by the decades-old, but more recently ratified. That's not working. More recently named, whatever, concept of one JavaScript, which we touched on briefly in the last newsletter. Oh, this is cool. So I get to do a character voice for me here. I'm probably not telling you anything that you don't already know when I say that JavaScript, in ways both large and small, only make a kind of sense. It makes sense for something developed 30 years ago by Hatsune Miku over the course of a week and a half. This is what I sound like. A lot of times I say my own name before I say something in what is definitely my voice. I'll go, oh, I'm Welto, and it makes sense for something that can be infinitely expanded, but cannot, per a principle known as one JavaScript, be changed or fixed. Will these 2025 editions be in the course? You bet they will. Do I have to comb through the latest version of the specification to see if they fixed, I don't know, math? No, for they never will. JavaScript will continue to grow more powerful and more featured over time. New additions to the I'm getting a little Dracula with the voice now. More powerful and more featured over time. New additions to the language will come with new and improved ergonomics for us developers. But what's done will never be undone. It would be cool to just leave it there, just for dramatic flair. But probably I'll do it. Thanks so much for reading. I'm considering, based on a suggestion, including a running M- count for all of the newsletters. One, because M-dashes are mine, and ChatGPT can't have them. And two, because I use a lot of them, and that's a fun bit. So, well, we'll see. We'll see. But I am going to turn this into something a little more publishable. If you haven't signed up yet, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but wil.to/js will sign you up for these newsletters, I think. Or you can just go to writing on wil.to. I should probably double check that redirect still works after I changed a bunch of stuff. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining, and I will see you in 2 weeks.